Sebastian can't hear. He would throw away his hearing aid when we quarreled. He never took me into his real social circle. At a class reunion, someone asked him, "How on earth can you put up with Miss Quinton's temper?" Sebastian pointed at his hearing aid. "Take it off." The whole room burst into laughter. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. I didn't return to the home I shared with Sebastian until the third day after I came back from abroad. As soon as I opened the door, I could clearly feel that no one had lived here for a long time. Although there was an aunt who cleaned the house, the atmosphere of a home is really a subtle thing. I carried my bag and walked to the entrance to check the surveillance at the door. The surveillance archive only went back a month, and Sebastian hadn't come home even once in that month. Great. At 12 o'clock in the morning, the stereo in the master bedroom was still playing. I was lying on the bed playing games. The background music was so loud that I didn't notice the sound of the front door, until my music suddenly paused. I thought there was a ghost. I turned around and saw Sebastian, who was wearing silver-rimmed glasses and had a look of a debauched intellectual, standing at the end of the bed. "You're back from abroad." I turned back and continued playing my game, replying to him, "Yeah, I've been back for 3 days." Sebastian didn't say anything for a long time. It was only when my game ended that I realized he was still standing there motionless. Sebastian said that he had been too busy recently, and he would definitely accompany me to see an exhibition abroad next time. I raised my head and said, "It's okay. I have a great time with my girlfriends." Until Sebastian finished washing and lay down beside me. I instinctively turned over and faced my back to him. I suddenly realized that I didn't love Sebastian anymore. Tears welled up in an instant and wet the pillow. I used to think that as long as I was by Sebastian's side, it would be fine. But people's hearts are too greedy. I want Sebastian to love me. On the surface, Sebastian was a perfect boyfriend. But then that day came. I finally realized that there was an insurmountable gulf between us. He refused to let me get close to him. The company that Sebastian runs now was founded together with his college classmates. When that college classmate was going to get married, the wedding invitation was sent to our home. Naturally, I thought that Sebastian would definitely take me to the wedding. I carefully selected a gift for the newlyweds in advance, made an appointment with the makeup artist for that day, and picked out a dress that was decent but not too showy. When the wedding day came, from secretly looking forward to feeling disappointed and embarrassed, all I got was an Instagram post from a mutual friend with a group photo of the wedding scene. It turned out that Sebastian was the best man. The bridesmaid beside him was looking up at him with shining eyes. When I refreshed the moments, I found that I was blocked from seeing that post. I didn't want to be like a resentful woman, crying and asking Sebastian at home, why? I tried my best to pull myself together. When Sebastian came home, I was still looking at my tablet. I casually said, "You're back." When Sebastian passed through the living room, I pointed at the gift box on the coffee table. "This is the jewelry I prepared for the bride. Remember to give it to her." Sebastian just hummed in response. This incident made a big hole in my heart. The day when the wound festered was Valentine's Day. I went to Sebastian's company to have dinner with him. When I passed the reception desk, I paused. The receptionist asked me, "Hello, miss. Who are you looking for? Do you have an appointment?" I was about to answer. Suddenly, the receptionist's eyes lit up, and she smiled sweetly. It was obvious that this wasn't just a professional fake smile. "Good afternoon, Mr. Sebastian." I exchanged a glance with her, and the group photo of the wedding flashed through my mind. Then I remembered that this receptionist was the bridesmaid at the wedding. I took a step forward, and Secretary Paul beside Sebastian stepped back consciously. I directly took Sebastian's arm and said, "I'm here to see Mr. Sebastian. Do I need an appointment?" I looked at Sebastian when I said this, but Secretary Paul answered, "No, Miss Liz, you don't need an appointment. Just give me a call, and I'll come down to pick you up," Secretary Paul said with a smile. Sebastian frowned and said, "Why didn't you call in advance?" I said, "Otherwise, how can it be a surprise?" Of course, for Sebastian, it was just a shock. When I took the elevator with Sebastian, the receptionist rushed over with a stack of documents and shouted for us to wait. Secretary Paul instinctively pressed the "hold" button. When the receptionist came in, I could see that Secretary Paul looked as if he wanted to jump out of the elevator. The receptionist walked in quickly and said, "Sorry, this is a document that Mr. Hogan needs now." Sebastian nodded. His hearing aid on his ear was very obvious. The receptionist suddenly said, "Brother Sebastian, can you hear with this?" She pointed at her ear. I looked at her stiffly. Before Sebastian could answer, she suddenly realized something and quickly apologized. I took my hand out of Sebastian's arm. Sebastian turned to look at me. I glared at him. Sebastian turned back and said, "If you know it's impolite, then don't speak." He looked cold and calmly dropped these words, but they were extremely hurtful. The little receptionist's eyes turned red from being scared. After the receptionist got off at her floor, it was Secretary Paul who tried to smooth things over. "I'm sorry, Miss Liz. That young lady is the sister of Mr. Hogan's wife. She's here for an internship and doesn't know the rules." I felt sorry for Secretary Paul. When we reached the top floor, I didn't get off the elevator. I said to Sebastian, "Sorry, I just remembered that I have an appointment with someone today." This meant that I wasn't going to have dinner with Sebastian. Secretary Paul tried to save the situation, but Sebastian stood there and said, "Okay, call me when you're done." The elevator door closed automatically. As the elevator went down, I exchanged a look with Sebastian, and we sank into the darkness along with the glass door. I didn't know the conversation between him and Secretary Paul after I left. "Aren't you going to coax Miss Liz?" Sebastian said. "As long as I learn to accept all her thoughts, that's enough, isn't it?" Secretary Paul thought of his boss's past and closed his mouth. A year later, a high school classmate that both Sebastian and I knew was getting married and invited us. Sebastian had a meeting on that day, but he went to the wedding at my strong request. When I saw the bride walking towards the groom in her white wedding dress, my heart was suddenly stabbed. So this is what a wedding is like. When the godfather asked the newlyweds to kiss, I looked at Sebastian, and he was looking at me. After the wedding banquet, we went home without saying a word. My phone vibrated. It was my dad asking Sebastian to have dinner with me at home this weekend. I twirled my phone and casually asked him, pretending not to care, "Are you free this weekend?" Sebastian was looking at the traffic in the rearview mirror and said, "What's up?" My dad asked if you want to have a meal. Half of his face that was showing stiffened, and then he said, "I'm on a business trip this weekend." I kept asking, "What about next weekend? And the weekend after that?" Sebastian didn't say anything. When we passed through the tunnel, the light from the streetlights faded on us. In the darkness, I asked him, "Sebastian, do you hate me or my dad?" My emotions poured out. You always have all sorts of things to do when my dad asks you to come. Did my dad offend you? Sebastian reached out and grabbed me. "Finally," he said, "let's talk when we get home." Sebastian's ignoring me made me blurt out, "Sebastian, are you an ungrateful person? My dad has been so good to you." The car braked suddenly. With the protection of the seatbelt, I still leaned forward a lot. Sebastian leaned over and held my chin with one hand. I seemed to see hatred in his eyes. "Yes, I'm just a poor student sponsored by your family." I couldn't understand. "Sebastian, why do you always mention that you're a poor student when it comes to us? Do I look down on you or hate you?" Sebastian gradually let go of me, looking stunned. His voice was a bit hoarse, "But that's what I am." He reached out and took off the hearing aid on his right ear. I'm also deaf. I hadn't recovered from Sebastian's sudden action of taking off his hearing aid. Sebastian restarted the car, and all that was left in the air was, "I said it a long time ago. We're not suitable for each other." Yes. When Sebastian agreed to be with me, he said, "Even if I never love you." When he relented for the first time, I was stunned and nodded quickly. So he said, "Okay, let's give it a try." Yes, I was wrong. The moon won't come to me. After that night, without notifying him, I flew to London to see an art exhibition. I didn't take the initiative to contact Sebastian even once in 3 months. Sebastian was rather unusual. He occasionally sent me messages in the early morning on his side while it was night on my side. "It's raining. Remember to bring an umbrella when you go out." I ignored him. I went to see exhibitions, skied, went bungee jumping. Before I decided to go back to my country after experiencing all these, I sent a message to Sebastian. "I have something to talk to you about when I get back to the country." Sebastian didn't respond to this message, but the moment I jumped off the snowy mountain in Austria, I suddenly realized I shouldn't hold on to him anymore, being too infatuated with having a happily ever after, like a prince and a princess with Sebastian. Even if that day really comes, can I forget all the pain before the ending? I went back to the home I shared with Sebastian on the 3rd day after returning to the country. Through the surveillance at the entrance, I found that he hadn't been home for a month, but he came back in the early morning. Sebastian said that he would accompany me to have fun next time. I understood that this was Sebastian's awkward way of making peace. I started talking to Sebastian politely. It's okay. I have a great time with my girlfriends. When I was half asleep at night, warm skin touched my palm. He took my hand. Maybe even the indifferent Sebastian felt something. I slept until the afternoon the next day. When I got up, I started packing my luggage. I even brought an empty suitcase from home on purpose. When I was packing the nightstand, I opened the drawer and found a velvet box that I had never seen before. I was a bit scared, but I still reached out and opened the box. It was a ring. It was the gift that I had dreamed of, Sebastian giving me a ring. The afterglow shone into the room through the thin gauze by the window and into my eyes. The inner ring was engraved with apple. It was shining. There was also a note in the small box, which read, "You are the apple of my eye." The figure on the floor, illuminated by the setting sun, suddenly had one more person. I looked up. It was Sebastian who came back. I picked up the ring and walked up to Sebastian. I tried my best to hold back my tears. I held back until the veins on my neck popped out. I waved the ring and questioned Sebastian. "So, is this what you call, we're not suitable?" Sebastian looked at the note that had fallen to the ground and bent down to pick it up. I reached out and knocked the note away again. "Speak. Can't you speak?" Sebastian. Sebastian could easily ignite my emotions. But originally, we weren't like this. Full of opposition and contradictions. Sebastian was a poor student in the Pearl class. All the tuition fees and scholarships for the Pearl class were sponsored by the Quinton Group. And Sebastian was a special student in the Pearl class. He was special because he was a person with a hearing impairment. The words, poor student, person with a hearing impairment, and top student, attracted a swarm of media who were promoting the school. When we first met, a crowd of reporters was interviewing Sebastian about his feelings of receiving sponsorship. A sharp-eyed reporter noticed me who was almost pushed against the wall. "Student Sebastian, Miss Liz, who is in the same grade as you behind you, is the daughter of your sponsor. Won't it be a bit awkward for you in your daily interactions? For goodness sake." Sebastian didn't know me at all, but Sebastian smiled and asked everyone to step back, pulling me to a safe position from the dense crowd. "Liz is very nice. She always gets along friendly with the classmates." After the extremely awkward interview, when I went back to the teaching building with Sebastian and he passed me when he went back to his class, I saw something different in his ear compared to others. "Can you hear with this?" I was curious. It was only when Sebastian turned around that I realized I hadn't held back this impolite question. But Sebastian turned back and looked at me with a half-smile. He answered irrelevantly, "I can still hear with my other ear." If Liz 10 years later were here, she would definitely miss Sebastian in high school. At this time, Sebastian wasn't a mute, but it was Liz, a high school student at the age of 17, who was standing here. This inexplicable answer hit her heart. I started to want to be friends with Sebastian. I took the initiative to talk to him. Since Sebastian was good at studying, I went to his class every day under the pretext of asking him to teach me. I even sat in on their class. When we were doing group English dialogue practice, Sebastian said that his favorite fruit was an apple. So at Christmas that year, the desk holes of all the students in Sebastian's class were stuffed with red apples. Since then, everyone in the Pearl class knew me. Only Sebastian knew that his share was different. He received a unique greeting card, which was also the highlight of my intelligence and emotional intelligence in my life. The greeting card said, "You are the apple of my eye." Although Sebastian didn't respond, I could feel that the hard cocoon around his heart seemed to soften a bit towards me. Once after school, I forcibly took Sebastian to a milk tea shop and shared my favorite milk tea with him. When we were sitting face to face, I stammered, wanting to say something. Sebastian saw that I was struggling inside. "Just say it. What do you want?" I smiled triumphantly, stirred the milk tea with a straw, and said, "Let's make it clear first. I'm just curious." Curious. I searched online and found that some people with hearing impairments can still hear something. "What about you?" Sebastian smiled gently and said, "Well, yes. I can only hear a little if someone speaks loudly and has been close to my ear for a long time." "Can you take it off?" I asked him. Sebastian was being very obedient recently. He took off his hearing aid as I asked. I leaned close to his ear and spoke a little louder than normal. "How about this?" Sebastian showed no reaction at all. I was so carried away that I forgot that he could hear with his left ear. I shouted in his ear, "I like you." In this way, not only did Sebastian know my feelings, but the whole world knew that Miss Liz liked Sebastian. However, whether Sebastian liked Miss Liz, even Miss Liz herself didn't know. "Speak, Sebastian." Miss Liz at the age of 27 was also shouting at Sebastian. Sebastian rushed over and hugged me. He stroked my head. He pulled me into his arms as if I was something precious. Sorry, Liz. He kept rubbing my head. I pushed him away with my backhand. For 7 years. We've been together for 7 years. Can't you give me an explanation? Even if it's a lie. What on earth have you been doing all these years? You've been ignoring me while secretly buying a ring. Fine. I admit it. Sebastian blurted out. I admit that I'm despicable. My eyes widened. I was afraid to admit my feelings. That way, if one day you wanted to leave me, I could say that I didn't like you. Your world is so dazzling. And I'm just a dull existence. I'm even disabled. Sebastian looked at me with his head lowered. It was the first time I saw him being so cautious. I took a deep breath and held back my tears. But I failed. Tears rolled out of my eyes. What about me? Sebastian, you make me feel that I don't deserve love and marriage. Finally, I couldn't hold back and told Sebastian all my pain. You never took me into your social circle, even when the wedding invitation from your friend was sent to our home. I waited for you. I waited for you to ask me if I wanted to go with you. I didn't want to cry, and I wiped away the tears that kept welling up with my right hand. But I kept waiting. When I saw the group photo of the wedding on Moments, I finally believed that the Sebastian who seemed to treat me well actually didn't like me at all. Sebastian's fingers curled and trembled. I'm not. I interrupted him directly. Sebastian, don't tell me. You're so smart. But you can't see that the receptionist likes you. She was the bridesmaid that day. But you still kept her in your company. Sebastian frowned. Liz, the company isn't just mine. I sneered. Sebastian, I see it clearly. Your scumbag behavior and your love can exist at the same time. I looked down at the ring. I'll keep the ring. I touched the part with the English engraving with my finger. I turned around and threw the ring out of the window with force. I turned back and looked at the stunned Sebastian. I'll decide how to deal with the consequences. Sebastian immediately turned around and wanted to go downstairs to look for the ring. I stopped him. Sebastian, it's no use even if you find it. Sebastian turned around. His eyes were bloodshot. How could it be? How could it be useless? I stretched out my index finger and pointed at the place where his heart was. Because it's too late. That was something I wanted before. But not anymore. Sebastian grabbed my finger. Liz, don't you want me anymore? He looked so pitiful. Like a wet puppy. I sighed and shook my head. Let's break up. Sebastian rushed over and hugged me tightly. Sorry, Liz. I'm sorry. I tried to push him away. But I couldn't. But I don't love you anymore. Sebastian stiffened instantly. You're lying to me. Right. I know I was wrong. I won't be so stubborn anymore. I turned my head and saw that Sebastian was on the verge of crying. I continued. I've finally decided to let go. You should be happy for us. Sebastian was so emotional that he tore off his hearing aid and threw it onto the bed. I looked at the hearing aid that had landed in the quilt. I said softly, I've never thought that just because you're poor and can't hear. You're pitiful. Sebastian, you're excellent. So don't deny my love. I moved out of Sebastian's house that night. In the early days of starting his business, Sebastian had been sharing a place with others and never let me go there. This house was bought by Sebastian after his business succeeded. And both our names were on the property certificate. Sebastian kept sending me messages every day, sharing what he had done that day. He sent me goodnight messages every day. After looking at the messages for a week, I steeled my heart and blocked him. Not long after, there was a high school class reunion, and I needed an appropriate way to tell everyone that we had broken up. I thought Sebastian wouldn't come, but then I heard his voice at the door. Someone asked him, Mr. Sebastian, how on earth can you put up with Miss Quinton's temper? Sebastian said, take it off. I raised my eyebrows, and the waiter who was about to open the door for me lowered his head in embarrassment. I pushed the door open with one hand. The smiles on everyone's faces froze, and then quickly turned into flattering smiles. Miss, you're finally here. We were just asking Sebastian about you. I smiled and looked at Sebastian. He seemed to be drunk. He didn't show it on the surface, but his eyes were blurred. Is that so? Sebastian. Sebastian looked at me and nodded slowly. I looked at the person who had asked Sebastian the question. Thank you for your concern. From now on, Sebastian doesn't need to put up with me. Sebastian is free. The person's face turned pale instantly. Miss Liz, I didn't mean that. Sebastian stood up unsteadily, shaking his head. Liz has never lost her temper with others casually. Liz has never looked down on me. When I take off my hearing aid, I can't hear. Liz didn't break up with me. There was a deathly silence in the room. No one had ever seen Sebastian like this. Neither had I. Maybe in the past, I had been chasing after Sebastian too much, and no one believed that I was the one who initiated the breakup. When the reunion was over, I wanted to leave first, but everyone tacitly handed the drunk Sebastian over to me. At first, I didn't want to take care of him, but looking at him sitting there with his head down, he looked like a child that no one wanted. For the last time, I walked over and casually took his phone out of his pocket and unlocked it with his fingerprint. I found the WeChat of Peter, a college classmate who had a good relationship with Sebastian. XX Hotel. Sebastian is drunk. Come and pick him up. The other side replied instantly. I have a wife. I was about to explain when the other side called me. It's me, Liz. With this sentence, the other side stopped talking. He's drunk. Whether you come to pick him up or not is up to you. My kindness ended here. Sister-in-law, don't leave. I'll come right away, Peter said in a hurry and called for someone. No need. I have something else to do. I was about to hang up the phone. Don't. I have something important to tell you. Sebastian, that stubborn guy, will never say it himself. I could hear that he was rushing out. It's a deal. Sister-in-law, I'm coming right now. I looked at the darkened screen and then at the sleeping Sebastian. Sebastian's personality was really different from his friends. Peter arrived at the private room in less than 10 minutes. I wasn't familiar with Peter. I had just met him. He first checked if Sebastian was really asleep. Then he scratched his head, looking a bit embarrassed. Well, I stood up. Then don't say it. When I was about to push the door of the private room open, Peter suddenly said, Your father has approached Sebastian. I stopped in my tracks. Your father hopes that he can give up his career here and marry you, and then inherit your family's company. He, that stubborn guy, of course refused. Peter saw that I was listening, so he said more. Actually, when our company started, your father put a lot of pressure on us. Peter might feel that it was not good to speak ill of your father in front of you, so he kept touching his nose. Maybe he was being too euphemistic. If my father wanted to put pressure on someone, hardly anyone would not give in to him. I was speechless. Sorry, I didn't know that. I knew this sentence was feeble, but I still said it. It doesn't matter. Miss Liz, this was an agreement between your father and Sebastian. They both didn't want you to know. Peter suddenly became serious. Originally, your father stopped putting pressure on us in recent years, but I don't know why he started again recently. He must be very distressed too. The company had been changing because of his best friend's relationship issues. Peter also said that recently, their business plan was leaked, and Sebastian had been working day and night in the company to come up with a new plan to make up for it. But in the end, he chose to submit his resignation. He resigned. I was even more surprised. These were all things I had no idea about. Peter nodded. He didn't want to drag us down. I seemed to understand why Sebastian didn't take me to the other person's wedding. It would seem like a declaration of war. After hearing so many things, I needed some time to digest them. I assured Peter, I will ask my father about this. If it's true, I will apologize to you, and I will ask my father to stop. Peter said one last thing. It had nothing to do with what he had said before. If even you don't want him, he will have nothing left. I went home late at night. My father was actually at home today. The aunt said that my father would be abroad recently. After hearing Peter's words, I felt a bit awkward and slowly took off my shoes with my head lowered. My father called me over. Liz, did you go to a party with your friends? I shuffled my feet and nodded. It was a high school class reunion. He smiled cheerfully. Oh, did you go with Sebastian? He looked very amiable when he mentioned Sebastian. My father had told me before that he thought highly of Sebastian. I sat on the single sofa next to him and hugged a cushion in my arms. I deliberately paid attention to my father's expression and said slowly word by word, No, we've broken up. My father's face changed instantly. But my father said to me, It doesn't matter. Liz, we will meet someone better. Yeah, I nodded. Although my parents didn't love each other and it was just an ordinary business marriage. My mother had separated from my father and immigrated abroad in recent years. But since I was a child, my father had doted on me. I couldn't believe that my father would treat the person I liked like this. I couldn't even figure out why he had to force Sebastian to inherit our family's company. Before my father went back to his room, he asked the aunt to bring me a glass of milk and told me to go to bed early. The seeds of doubt were planted in my heart. The next day, when I passed by the study, I heard my father on the phone. Fragmented voices came from inside the door. You and Liz broke up. You still signed. I quietly turned the doorknob. My father said, "Only when Liz likes you do you deserve to be taken seriously by me." These words directly reached my ears. My father finally noticed the half-open door and stopped talking. He hung up the phone directly. I pushed the door open. There were some scattered documents on the floor. I squatted down and picked up the most eye-catching piece of paper with a seal on it. It was the prenuptial agreement between me and Sebastian. It clearly divided our property. Sebastian would be the chairman of the Quinton group before the children of the Quinton and Pay families reached the age of majority. Sebastian would never have the right to the shares, only the right to dividends. Once Sebastian did something that damaged the reputation of the Quinton family, he would leave the family with nothing. At the bottom of the agreement, Sebastian had already signed his name. I held the paper and walked to the desk. "Dad, do I seem so eager to get married? Why do you make it seem like I have no one else to marry except Sebastian? Don't I feel ashamed?" Even my father had to force Sebastian, and only then was Sebastian willing to marry me. My father stood up and looked at me with a bit of helplessness. "Yes, I like him, but what's the use of a marriage forced like this?" I couldn't understand. There was a long silence between my father and me. My father said, "But Sebastian agreed to be with you. It's also because his mother was ill and needed a large sum of money." It was like I was listening to a fairy tale full of lies. But my father continued to tell me the truth. "Since I can control him." And he agreed. "And you, Liz, would be happy. Why not?" It turned out that when I was in extreme pain, I could feel my heart aching so much that I could hardly breathe. My mind went blank, and tears welled up involuntarily. For a whole 7 years, I had been living in a lie created by my father and Sebastian. It turned out that from the very beginning, it was all fake, wrong, and full of self-interest. I thought I had finally touched his heart. My voice choked up. He clearly had softened towards me. My father walked around the desk towards me. "Liz, since we can fulfill your wish earlier, why waste time chasing after him? Your father has been through a lot. I know very well that only by binding you with interests can you and Sebastian have a long and stable relationship." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My father had never shown me this side of him. I asked him while crying, "What about you and Mom? Have you ever truly loved each other even for a second?" My father explained to me seriously, hoping that I could understand. "Sebastian is different. Yes, he is different. He is just a poor student, and he is a person with a hearing impairment. So, Dad, do you think you can trample on other people's lives wantonly?" I pushed my father's hand away violently. I shouted loudly, "You are not only trampling on his dignity but also mine." My father looked at me helplessly. "Liz, you don't understand. Dad is doing this for your own good. I don't need it. On what grounds do you hurt me in the name of doing what's good for me?" I was so angry that I turned around and was about to leave. Just as I walked out the door, there was a loud thud behind me. I turned around and saw my father lying on the floor. He was clutching his heart with his right hand and gasping for breath. I immediately rushed over. "Dad, what's wrong with you? Dad." My hands were shaking as I looked around for my phone. Not finding it, I held my father and turned to shout downstairs, "Aunt, call an ambulance. Hurry up." My father was quickly taken to the emergency room. I stood at the door, looking at the closed door. Not long after, the nurse came out briskly and handed me a piece of paper. "The family member. Please sign your name." I lowered my head and saw it was a notice of critical illness. I took a step back in a daze. I knew I couldn't delay. Bracing myself, I signed my name. I asked the nurse quickly, my voice trembling, "What exactly happened to my dad? Please, you have to save him." The nurse gave me a surprised look. "Don't you know, your father has a history of heart disease?" After saying that, the nurse took the signed notice and trotted back into the emergency room. I stood there, stunned. How could it be? A heart attack? I had no idea at all. 2 people walked quickly along the silent corridor. It was my father's special assistant and Sebastian. The special assistant nodded to me and then kept making phone calls. Sebastian stood behind me and hugged me. I was really scared, and my whole body was trembling. I pushed him away. My teeth chattered. "No, leave me alone." I couldn't face Sebastian. Every time I saw him, I remembered the scene of me quarreling with my father. I couldn't imagine what Sebastian was thinking when he looked at me after agreeing to be with me. It's because of this woman's love that his life was bound. I choked up and said, "Sebastian, I'm serious. You don't have to pretend to like me anymore." I didn't believe it. "You were forced to be with me and forced to sign an unfair agreement." I paused. We both made mistakes. But can you stop acting? I looked up at Sebastian. He stood there. His eyes were filled with a broken look. He tried to explain. It's not like that. Even without your father, we would still be together. He reached out to hold me, and the veins on his hand were bulging. I dodged him. I couldn't cry anymore. I asked calmly, as if, how can we be together? By deceiving each other. We were together, but our hearts were miles apart. I don't want to live like this anymore. Sebastian was about to speak. The light in the emergency room suddenly went off, and then the door opened. My father was wheeled out. The white bedsheet covered his face. The whole world went silent, and I had tinnitus in my ears. I wanted time to stop. I didn't want things to go on so cruelly, but time kept flowing. The doctor took off his medical mask and said to me seriously, "Please accept my condolences." Everyone looked at me. I looked at my father lying there. Was it me who made my father die of anger? My hands were shaking as I tried to take another look at my father. The special assistant stopped me. "Miss, please accept my condolences. I never thought that the last time I saw my father in this world was when we were quarreling. The last image my father saw before he closed his eyes was my back." I kept gasping for air. My soul seemed to be floating on the clouds. This must be fake. This was fake. My mind went blank. Shocked. I fainted. Someone caught me. When I woke up, it was the next day, and there was a drip in my right hand. Sebastian was leaning against my bedside. When he saw me wake up, he helped me up. "Dad." I tried to speak, but I couldn't make a sound. When the special assistant saw this, he immediately called the doctor. The doctor said that when a person's spirit was severely shocked, it was possible to have aphasia. It was recommended to see a psychologist to adjust it slowly. After the doctor left, the special assistant said to me, "Actually, Mr. Quentin was diagnosed with heart disease a few years ago. Mr. Quentin loved you very much. He won't blame you. He hopes you can be happy." Hearing this, my tear ducts started to work again. Hot tears streamed down my face. "Miss Liz, please accept my condolences." The special assistant bowed deeply to me. I lay in bed and turned my head. Tears kept sliding down to the side of my ear. I looked at the just risen sun. I thought, my father could no longer see it. On the day of my father's funeral, the weather was very bad. The dark clouds were pressing down, and when the wind blew, there was a light rain. My mother came back to the country 3 days in advance. She was wearing a black suit, and the special assistant held a big black umbrella for her. My mother walked up to me, in front of my father and everyone. She slapped me hard. "Liz, you'd better wake up. Life is not just about your ridiculous love." This was the first time my mother taught me something, and it was the first time she didn't care about her demeanor and said something that didn't suit her status as a lady from high society. I held the white chrysanthemums in my hand. I squatted in front of my father's grave and touched the engraved name, "Beloved daughter, Miss Liz." I couldn't speak. I whispered to my father in my heart, "Dad, I love you. If there is a next life, I will definitely be a very obedient daughter. Dad, I miss you so much." After the funeral, when I was about to get into the car that the special assistant opened for me, I turned around and saw Sebastian, holding a black umbrella in the distance and wearing a black coat. I motioned to the special assistant to wait for a while and walked towards Sebastian. Sebastian naturally tilted the umbrella towards me. I didn't know what I looked like at that moment. I didn't know that my face was pale and I was so thin that my clothes hung loosely on me. Sebastian gripped the handle of the umbrella tightly. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. I took out my phone, opened the memo, and typed word by word for him to see. "Sebastian, this is it. I regret it. We should let each other go. We were wrong from the beginning. We could never understand each other." I didn't understand where his inferiority complex came from. He also didn't understand what I really needed. After typing, I looked up at him. Sebastian looked at me, and a tear fell from his red eyes. He was holding back his emotions, and his voice was hoarse. He said, "Okay." I refused the umbrella that Sebastian offered me and got into the car. The car drove away. I turned my head and looked through the rear window. I saw Sebastian still standing there. He stood there with his back straight, holding the umbrella, until he gradually became a small black dot. That was the last time we saw each other in our lives. I chose to go abroad to continue my studies in art. My mother hired a professional agent to take care of the Quentin group. I didn't have to worry about it. My mother told me to finish my studies well and also to relax and cure my aphasia. I got along well with my classmates from all over the world. My classmates always thought I was a person with speech impairment and took care of me in every way. But for more than a year, I still couldn't speak. I could only learn some simple sign language. On Christmas Eve, I received a lot of beautiful apples. When the first classmate stuffed a red apple into my hand, I tried to open my mouth, but I hadn't spoken for too long. I just made some, sounds. The classmate thought I was trying to say thank you. He quickly said, "It doesn't matter." I tried very hard, and finally I said, "The NKU." The classmate's eyes widened, and his mouth opened wide. The apple created a medical miracle. I smiled. The classmate smiled with me. A long time passed. On the snowy mountain where I once went bungee jumping, I met a man. His name was Jack, and he was of Chinese descent. I didn't want to talk. He taught himself sign language for me, but actually, I couldn't understand most of it. But looking at him being silly, sometimes I thought he was quite cute. Sebastian said that he was too busy recently, and next time he would definitely accompany me to see an exhibition abroad. My mother flew over and attended my wedding in the church. After the wedding, she hugged me gently. "Your father and I both love you. I hope you can be as happy as you are today forever." I didn't cry. I nodded in agreement. I never quarreled with Jack. He always tolerated my various emotions. I seem to have really found the more suitable and better person. A plain life is also a life worth living. We held hands and reached our old age. My husband Jack died before me. A few years later, my body also started to give warnings. I lay in bed with a respirator on, quietly waiting for the last moment of my life. When my heart stopped, at that moment, the memories of my life flashed before my eyes like a movie. A person's life is made up of several moments. In the end, I saw a young man. He smiled and turned around. "Liz, I can hear with my other ear." From then on, I was no longer in this world. There was no us anymore. The end.